Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, J City Reviews. Thanks for stopping by today. I have an exciting video for you that I've been looking forward to do for quite a while now. In this video we're going to be comparing two watches, the Citizen Promaster Tough and the Victorinox INOX, and basically just going over the aesthetic differences between the two, and at the end I'm going to give my verdict on which watch I would buy if I could only pick one. So I hope this video will be helpful to you. If you're in the market, maybe looking at one or both of these watches, can't decide which one, I hope this video will be helpful to you as we compare the two. And I hope that you'll subscribe to this channel if you're not subscribed. We have a giveaway going on currently that ends just in a few days. It ends on February 12th at midnight. So there's a few days left that you can enter. If you haven't seen that video, if you haven't entered yet, go to my channel and there'll be a link in the description below as well to that giveaway video. So get in while you still have a chance. I was going to give away this Victorinox INOX as part of that giveaway if we reached 1,000 subscribers, but it doesn't look like we're going to reach that goal with just a few days left. We're sitting right around 330 subscribers right now, but that's okay. Maybe we'll give this watch away in the future, who knows. But without further ado, let's get into the comparison video for today. Well, here they both are, the Victorinox INOX on the right and the Citizen Promaster Tough on the left. We're going to throw up some specs for both watches so we can see them side by side here. Their dimensions overall are very similar. The case diameter on the Victorinox INOX is just 1 millimeter larger at 43, whereas the Promaster Tough is 42. Get some difference in the thickness of the watches, and you can see that the Victorinox is much thicker at 13.5 millimeters, whereas the Promaster Tough comes in under 11 millimeters, so that's quite a difference there. But for the most part, the lug to lug is similar, a few more millimeters longer for the Victorinox INOX. Lug width is the same on paper, but I measured the Victorinox INOX to be more closer to 21 millimeters, so keep that in mind. But the specs are close. Another place that they part is on the weight. You can see here that the Victorinox INOX weighs more than the Promaster Tough, and I'm measuring all the links there, so you can see that the Victorinox INOX comes in at 200.4 grams roughly, and the Promaster Tough comes in at 181 grams, and so there is a difference in weight, so that's something to keep in mind as well. But the reason we're doing this comparison is because these are very similar watches. Just the overall look of these watches and the case shape is very similar. The size is close as far as diameter goes. Like we already mentioned, it parts on the thickness of the case, as you can see, quite a bit thicker the Victorinox INOX is compared to the Promaster Tough, and we'll throw in some pictures throughout this video as well where you can see that a little bit better. But overall, they're very, very similar watches. The dial design is close, not the same obviously, but very similar dial design and layout. These both have a water resistance of 200 meters. They both have screw down crowns. They're both made out of stainless steel. They both have sapphire crystals, which is nice. And even the bracelet design is similar as well. Not the same, but they both have that H-link bracelet design. The clasps are different. We'll talk about that in a moment. But very, very similar watches. But let's talk about some differences real quick. Obviously, they're both quartz watches, but the Citizen Promaster Tough has Citizen's Eco Drive, so it's a solar-powered quartz, which the Victorinox INOX is not. It's just a simple quartz movement, and so there's a big difference there. I prefer having a solar-powered quartz if I can have it over regular quartz, just because it'll last longer. You don't have to change the battery because it's being recharged by sunlight and artificial light all the time. So that's a big difference underneath the hood that you don't necessarily see. Something that I noticed right off the bat as well is just the color of the stainless steel. The Promaster Tough has more of a darker gray color, whereas the stainless steel on the INOX is a lighter, more normal colored stainless steel, you might say. So that's something to take note of. Also, the Citizen Promaster Tough has super titanium coating on it, on the stainless steel components, and so it's supposed to help with scratches. There's no such coating or anything like it on the INOX. The Promaster Tough is basically all brushed, no polished surfaces anywhere. The INOX has some polished surfaces. You can see on the bezel and even on the bracelet there are some polished surfaces as well, but most of it's brushed. So that's a difference. Of course, the Citizen Promaster Tough has a monocoque case, so there's no case back there. There is a case back, screw down case back on the INOX. Of course, talking about the case, we've already made mention of it, but the Promaster Tough is quite a bit thinner than the INOX, and that's quite a difference there. And we'll throw in some pictures as well where you can see the cases side by side, and yeah, a lot chunkier for sure for the Victorinox. There are more angles and lines on the case of the Promaster Tough. These crown guards, you know, they kind of jut out quickly. There's some lines here on the lugs as well, whereas the Victorinox INOX has more of a curvature going up to those crown guards, and around the case here there are less lines. It's just something that I noticed. The Victorinox has a very unique bezel with that hexagon type shape there, and the Citizen has just a plain bezel. Not much going on in that department. Promaster Tough has a smaller crown. The INOX, let me put it on top here, is a much larger crown. Both work great. They're both screw down, but just something to take note of there about the crown. The sapphire crystal on the Promaster Tough is slightly raised above the bezel. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, whereas on the INOX it's slightly below the bezel. So that's just another difference. There's a less busy chapter ring on the Promaster Tough, whereas you get a lot more markings there. You get the 24-hour time markings as well, even though they're quite small on the Victorinox INOX. So slightly busier chapter ring there on the inside of the dial for the INOX. The Promaster Tough has a smaller, less legible date window, and it's at the 3 o'clock position. I think the INOX has a much better, much more legible date window, as you can see, and it's in between the 4 and 5 hour markers there. So I prefer the date window on the INOX a lot better than the Citizen Promaster Tough. There is lume on the second hand here on the Citizen Promaster Tough, and there's no lume on the Victorinox INOX. Let's take a moment and do a lume comparison here. I charged both of these up about the same, and you can see that the Citizen is really a lot better in the lume department than the I.N.O.X. So there's quite a difference there, and that's something to keep in mind. Moving on to the bracelet and clasp of these watches, you get a similar style as we already pointed out. More polished portions here though on the I.N.O.X. There are no polished portions on the Promaster Tough, but a similar designed bracelet, no doubt. The bracelet on the Promaster Tough, I think, is a little bit nicer. I like how it's raised up in those center links. It's not just flush like it is on the I.N.O.X. And then talking about the clasp on the Promaster Tough is just, really nice milled clasp there, and just really rugged, and it's just that normal fold over and push buttons here, which everyone is familiar with, and it works great. The clasp, unfortunately, on the I.N.O.X. is something unique and different. You kind of have to pop this open, and then you have to put that through there, and then close it down like that. It looks great once it's closed, but the design is really, in my opinion, a little bit difficult to take on and off when you need to, because everything just needs to, in order to fit through, it needs to line up just right. And so I'm not a fan of the clasp on the I.N.O.X., unfortunately. But as far as price goes, if you're in the market for either one of these watches, they're about the same price. I think you can find them online for about $250 a piece if you check on eBay and different places. So they're very similar priced watches, and that's one reason we're also doing the comparison. So I'll leave some links down in the description where you can find some of these watches if you're interested in buying them. But I'm going to give my final verdict now in front of the camera, so let's go do that. So what is my verdict between these two watches, the Citizen Promaster Tough and the Victorinox INOX? Before I let you know what my verdict is, I have to say that these are both great watches. They're both rugged watches, they're both tough watches, and we didn't really put them through their paces today. We didn't do a torture test or anything like that, but I have to say you really can't go wrong with owning either one of these, no matter which one you choose. But for me, one does come out on top, and I think many of you can guess which one that is, and it's the Citizen Promaster Tough, in my opinion. This is the watch that I would buy if I could only have one or the other. If I could start all over and just have these two options, I would choose the Citizen Promaster Tough for a couple reasons. First of all, I love the solar-powered Eco Drive that continually charges the battery. It should last well over 10 years, even 20 years I've heard for some solar-powered watches. So I like that option, that feature of not having to worry about the battery. This regular quartz watch here on the I.N.O.X., you'll have to change the battery every couple years or so. So that's one reason I would choose this. Another reason is simply for the thinness of the case of this watch. I really enjoy that thin design, and I also love the color of the bracelet here, and so it's just a thinner and lighter watch, and I just enjoy the Citizen much more. But let me know what you think in the comments about this comparison. Which one would you choose if you could only have one? And if you're interested in buying one of these watches, there will be links in the description of this video. But thanks for tuning in today to J City Reviews. Please like this video and subscribe if you're not subscribed, and we'll see you next time.